The arena hummed with anticipation, long before the first punch was thrown. Lights washed over the ring as the crowd settled into a tense rhythm of murmurs, camera flashes, and rising cheers. In the heart of the ring stood two fighters representing not just themselves, but the pride of two fighting nations. From Tajikistan came the rising prospect Akmal Ubaidov, the undefeated young champion, whose recent triumph at the Asian Championships had begun to turn heads across the boxing world. Across from him stood a seasoned traveler of the sport, the battle-tested Kazakh warrior, Yerzhan Zalilov. Zalilov was no stranger to hostile arenas or tough assignments. His resume told the story of a fighter forged in experience, bouts fought across Europe and Central Asia, a national title captured in Kazakhstan, and hard rounds shared with elite opposition. Tonight he entered as the visiting fighter, the man expected to test the rising star. Yet anyone who knew boxing understood the danger he carried into the ring. Experience can be a weapon sharper than youth, and Zalilov possessed it in abundance. As the fighters made their final preparations, the crowd roared louder, sensing the clash that was about to unfold. Ubaidov's supporters filled the arena with chants of encouragement, confident their young champion would continue his ascent. But boxing is never written in advance. Every fight carries the scent of uncertainty, and as the bell prepared to ring for the opening round of this 6-round featherweight contest, the tension in the building felt electric. Two orthodox fighters, two different journeys, one ring, and a story waiting to be written with every punch. The opening bell sliced through the noise, and immediately both fighters began the delicate dance of the first round. Ubaidov moved forward with confidence, his stance compact, his guard high, his feet planted wide as if staking a claim to the center of the ring. He carried the energy of youth, sharp, eager, and aggressive. Zalilov, by contrast, moved with the calm awareness of a veteran who had seen this moment many times before. He studied his opponent carefully, gloves tight to his cheeks, elbows tucked low as he measured the distance. The Tajik fighter tested the waters first, flicking probing shots and stepping in behind quick feints. Each time he moved, the crowd responded with excitement, roaring even when punches fell just short. Ubaidov's strategy was clear: pressure early, impose his strength, and make the experienced visitor uncomfortable. Zalilov absorbed the pressure patiently, sliding back, adjusting angles, and occasionally stepping forward with counters meant to remind the young prospect that this would be no easy night. Late in the round, Zalilov suddenly fired a sharp right hand followed by a quick left, a brief burst that caught the crowd off guard and hinted at the danger he possessed. It wasn't a knockout punch, but it was a statement. The veteran wasn't here merely to survive, he was here to compete. As the seconds ticked down, both fighters traded one last exchange, Zalilov even throwing a quick combination right at the bell in a gesture of aggression. The crowd buzzed as they returned to their corners. The opening round had been competitive, a chess match played with fists, and already it was clear that this fight would not be one-sided. Round 2 began with Ubaidov increasing the intensity. The young Tajikian champion marched forward with purpose, his shoulders hunched slightly as he dipped his knees and launched powerful shots toward the body. There was a physical strength to him that was impossible to ignore. Each punch thudded with force, particularly the right hand he drove toward Zalilov's ribs whenever the Kazakh fighter lingered too long in range. Zalilov responded with discipline, adjusting his guard, lowering his elbows to shield his midsection, and patiently waiting for opportunities to counter. The crowd roared each time Ubaidov stepped forward, sensing the moment their fighter tried to impose his will. Yet the veteran refused to crumble. He began stepping inside more frequently, shortening the distance to avoid the full extension of Ubaidov's heavy hooks. At close range, Zalilov fired quick counters, short punches meant to disrupt rhythm rather than cause immediate damage. It was clever work, the kind that comes only from years spent inside the ropes. Still, Ubaidov's pressure remained relentless. He stalked his opponent toward the ropes and unleashed bursts of offense whenever he sensed hesitation. One particular sequence saw him plant his feet and drive a right hand through the middle, the kind of punch that forced Zalilov to tighten his defense and rethink his positioning. Though the Kazakh fighter continued to show resilience, the momentum of the fight seemed to be leaning toward the younger man. The crowd could feel it as well, their cheers swelling every time Ubaidov advanced. Yet beneath the noise and excitement, a subtle battle of strategy continued, youthful aggression against seasoned composure. The third round unfolded like a tactical duel layered beneath the surface of violence. Ubaidov remained the aggressor, moving forward with determination, yet Zalilov began to adjust more effectively to the pressure. Instead of retreating straight back, the Kazakh veteran started working laterally, slipping away from the ropes and forcing Ubaidov to reset his attacks. It was a subtle but significant change. Each time the Tajik fighter tried to close the distance, Zalilov met him with quick jabs or counters to the body. They weren't devastating punches, but they served a purpose. They reminded Ubaidov that charging forward carried risks. The crowd still erupted whenever their hometown favorite threw combinations, particularly the wide hooks he loved to sling from either stance. At times Ubaidov even switched briefly to southpaw, unleashing left hands toward the body that echoed loudly through the arena. But Zalilov proved difficult to pin down. His defense tightened, his timing improved, and he began choosing moments to stand his ground, rather than retreat. One exchange saw him land a sharp right hand while slipping a body shot, drawing murmurs of appreciation even from the partisan crowd. The rhythm of the fight had changed slightly. While Ubaidov still pushed the pace, Zalilov was making him work harder for every clean connection. By the end of the round the fighters were trading at close quarters, neither willing to give ground. The bell rang with both men still engaged, a testament to the competitive nature of the contest. At the halfway mark, the fight had evolved from a straightforward assault into a battle of adjustments. Round 4 would bring one of the most dramatic moments of the fight. As the bell sounded, both fighters resumed their battle in the center of the ring. Zalilov showed newfound confidence, choosing to remain within punching range rather than constantly retreating. He began throwing uppercuts and short hooks from inside, the kind of punches designed to disrupt Ubaidov's rhythm. For a time, the strategy worked beautifully. The Kazakh fighter forced the younger man to hesitate, to think before launching forward. But boxing can change in an instant. During a brief break in action, as the referee called for separation, Ubaidov let his hands go a fraction too late. A sharp punch landed after the instruction to stop boxing. The impact caught Zalilov unprepared. His legs buckled slightly as he leaned against the ropes, clearly shaken by the unexpected blow. Immediately the referee stepped in, halting the action and beginning a tense sequence that silenced the arena. Zalilov took his time recovering, working his jaw, gathering his senses, while officials assessed the situation. The crowd murmured uneasily. Some booed, others waited anxiously. Eventually the decision came, a point deduction against Ubaidov for the late punch. The fight would continue, but the moment had changed the atmosphere entirely. What had been a straightforward contest suddenly carried controversy and tension. When action resumed, both fighters seemed slightly unsettled by the interruption. The rhythm of the fight had been broken, replaced by a cautious intensity that hung over the ring like a storm cloud. As the bout moved into the fifth round, fatigue began to creep into both fighters' movements. Ubaidov still pushed forward, attempting to overwhelm his opponent with volume and physical pressure. But the earlier delay appeared to have disrupted his momentum. His punches were still powerful, yet occasionally rushed, as though he were trying too hard to force the outcome. Zalilov, meanwhile, displayed the resilience of a veteran who refused to surrender. He slipped along the ropes, rolled under hooks, and answered with counters whenever openings appeared. It was gritty work, defensive, patient, and intelligent. The crowd watched intently as Ubaidov searched for the decisive moment. Several times he trapped Zalilov near the ropes, launching combinations aimed at the body and head. Yet the Kazakh fighter survived each attack with clever head movement and tight defense. One particularly sharp right hand from Zalilov even snapped back Ubaidov's head, a reminder that the fight remained competitive despite the momentum favoring the younger man. The exchanges grew more intense as the round progressed. Sweat flew from both fighters with every impact, the sound of leather on gloves echoing through the arena. Yet neither man could land the kind of clean, fight-ending blow that might shift everything. When the bell rang, the crowd applauded loudly. They knew they were witnessing not just a contest of skill, but a test of endurance and determination. The sixth and final round arrived with a sense of urgency. Ubaidov, aware that victory was within reach, came forward with renewed aggression. He planted his feet and drove powerful shots to the body, trying to break down the stubborn resistance of the Kazakh veteran. Zalilov, battered but unbroken, responded with courage. He bobbed and weaved along the ropes, slipping punches by inches, and firing occasional counters that kept the crowd on edge. The pace quickened as both fighters realized these were the final moments of the fight. Ubaidov's punches came in heavy bursts, hooks, uppercuts, and straight rights launched with determination. Yet Zalilov's defense remained impressive. Time and again he avoided the worst of the assault, his experience guiding him through the storm. As the final minute ticked away, the fighters exchanged one last series of blows in the center of the ring. The crowd roared with appreciation. It was the kind of closing stretch that defines a hard-fought contest. Two men pushing through exhaustion to leave everything behind inside the ropes. With seconds remaining, Zalilov fired a sharp right hand over the top, a final statement of defiance. Then the bell rang, ending 6 intense rounds of boxing. Both fighters stepped back, breathing heavily, and exchanged a brief gesture of respect. Whatever the judges would decide, each man had earned the admiration of everyone in the arena. As the fighters stood in the center of the ring awaiting the verdict, the atmosphere felt almost ceremonial. Gloves were removed, corners whispered encouragement, and the audience buzzed with speculation. The judges' scorecards were tallied, reflecting 6 rounds of relentless pressure, tactical adjustments, and moments of controversy. When the announcement finally came, the result confirmed what many had expected, a unanimous decision victory for the rising Tajik star, Akmal Ubaidov. The crowd erupted in celebration as his hand was raised high above his head. Yet the victory told only part of the story. Across the ring stood Yerzhan Zalilov, the veteran who had traveled far to test the young prospect, and had done so with courage and skill. Zalilov had pushed him, challenged him, and forced him to adapt under pressure. For Ubaidov, it was another step forward in a promising career, proof that he could handle adversity as well as dominate exchanges. For Zalilov, it was another chapter in the journey of a fighter who never backed down from a challenge. The crowd gave both men a respectful ovation as they left the ring, acknowledging the drama they had created together. Because in boxing, victories matter, but so do the battles that shape fighters along the way. And on this night, beneath the bright lights and roaring fans, two warriors had written a story that would linger long after the final bell.